Now let's look at the sentences that belong in the introduction. There you are. Okay. So the introduction is the place where you express the main idea of the entire essay, much in the same way that a topic sentence expresses the main idea of a paragraph. The sentence that expresses the main idea of the essay we call the thesis statement. And once again, thesis statement could well be the first sentence in your introduction, but it doesn't have to be. It could be the last sentence in your introduction. It could be in the middle. And like the topic sentence, it could be broken up into parts so that the main idea of your essay could be expressed in several different sentences in your essay. Once again, though, for a beginning writer or someone who's not comfortable, it's usually easier to make the first sentence in your essay the thesis statement. And once again, what we need to do is take a look at that thesis statement and see if there are any terms we've used that really should be defined more clearly. We do this, of course, throughout our formal writing. We define our terms, we clarify terms, because English language words can often mean many different things. And as I said before, we don't want our readers to misunderstand. And just like in the body paragraphs, you then move to what's important about this thesis. Your job as a writer is to point out what's important, is to express things that are important. Otherwise, why would anybody bother reading what you're writing? And when it's fiction and entertainment, it's a little different. But when it's formal writing, you're focusing on what's important here. And that's what you want to do. Sometimes, to whom is it important? Sometimes that's what's most significant. Or what about it makes it important? These are some of the kinds of ways that you can use to talk about how and why something is important. There's that defined terms. Here's something that's different about the introduction than in the body paragraphs, which is we don't put examples in the introduction. The introduction is a general statement expressing your whole thesis, and it doesn't focus on the specifics. Examples are definitely specifics, so you save those examples for the body paragraphs. And then, so here, the thesis statement, statement of importance, and then often what you do, what some people like to do, is to give an idea about how you will express the rest of the main thesis in the essay itself. So sometimes you give a little preview. If there are three aspects that are important, sometimes you state those three aspects there. You know, you'll talk about the length, the width, and the breadth of the problem, something like that. You don't have to do this. Some people really like to do it. If you don't do that, then you certainly should paraphrase your thesis statement. Now, there's a word that's important, paraphrasing. So paraphrasing simply means expressing the same thought that you've expressed earlier, but expressing it in different words, in different terms. We'll take a look at paraphrasing techniques and talk about that. But what's important here is that you maintain the interest of your reader. When you're writing something, the reader has to focus, has to concentrate, as you know, when you're doing reading. One of the reasons we have a bunch of reading in this class is so that you could practice those reading skills and remember how they link up directly with the writing skills. So when you're writing, you want to make sure that your reader can follow what you're saying. Emphatic order helps with that. And that the reader remains interested in what you're saying. One of the ways that a reader becomes disinterested or uninterested in what you're saying is when you repeat yourself. When a writer repeats himself or herself, then the reader quite rightly begins to say to himself or herself, the reader likes to say, I know what this writer's saying. This writer's repeating himself. I'm not going to keep listening to what she's saying or he's saying. So therefore, you want to avoid repeating the same phrases and the same words over and over again. So in terms of words, of course, the dictionary and the thesaurus gives you words that have the same meaning, right, but are different. Those are useful tools for a writer to use. In terms of phrases and sentences, paraphrasing is the tool, is the technique that you want to use to change the way, the pattern of the words that you're using and the actual words that you're using to express the same thought. The reader will, after they read those words, will understand that you're expressing the same thought. They'll say to themselves, oh, that's what he said before. But when you say it in a different way, instead of preventing the reader from reading them over and over, from reading because they see the same words repeated over and over again, you're encouraging the reader to read those words again. Now, they'll make the connection because they're reading and they're thinking about it, but they won't become bored because they won't, or as easily, because they won't be confronting the same words and the same phrases repeatedly. Right? Repetition can often lead to boredom, some say. Okay, so here, this is really what you're trying to accomplish in your introduction. You want to get your thesis statement out there. You want to explain why the thesis statement is important, define all the terms you need to define that you use to express those things, and then give a sense to the reader of what the essay is all about, what you're going to accomplish